On New Year's Eve 2021, at 11:45 p.m., I drove my loaded truck out of the driveway of my marital home in East Mill Creek, Utah, for the final time. Through one of that winter's heaviest snowstorms, I miraculously arrived at 3:45 a.m. to the farmland my former wife and I had purchased in the northeastern Uinta mountain range of Utah, and made it my new home. 2 months later, I filed for divorce on the 25th of February 2022. Just 2 days shy of an entire year later, Julia and I finally came to an agreement on property separation, and the marriage was ended and signed off by Judge Andrew Stone on the 22nd of February 2023. She received her copy of the paperwork signed by the judge, and I received my copy of the paperwork signed by the judge. And boy, did I read that decree thoroughly. I wanted to ensure that her sneaky lawyers hadn't tried to pull one of the many fast ones that they had attempted. I would assume that Julia did the same, although I represented myself during the settlement process, and I didn't pull any fast ones. My relationship with Julia ended acrimoniously, and unfortunately it has continued that way up unto the release of this video. But not from my side. I have not posted any negative or destructive content about her. I've not attacked her character. I haven't blamed her for our marriage ending. I have certainly expressed exasperation to my remaining few loyal friends over the malice on her part. But I've tried to take it on the chin and move on with my life, and have hoped that she would do the same. After having the paperwork for an entire year, and assuming that she has the very same paperwork, Julia made an anniversary Facebook post to commemorate the dissolution of our relationship. That post is dated the 22nd of February 2024. According to my sources, as of the release of this video, the post is still up on that Facebook account. It has been viewable for the past 14 months to anyone she hasn't blocked. And in case you're wondering, yes, she blocked me long before then. Here is that post. Currently, this is the number of people who have reacted to it, and this is the number of comments she has received on the post as of the release of this video. Out of respect for those who have engaged with this post, I won't reveal their names. However, you are most welcome to go to the Julia Blue site and see the post for yourself. After having read this post several times, I was initially incredibly confused. I was also a little unsure if I was missing some paperwork from the judge who had made a ruling that I was unaware of. So I immediately wrote to Judge Stone for clarification. This is where I'd learned that he had since retired. However, I received an email from the court secretary sending me back a copy of the decree, and assured me that what was signed by the judge, by Julia, and by myself was the correct agreement. I was not in error. This now creates a disparity about what Julia has posted publicly about our marriage dissolution and what she signed as our marriage dissolution. Because her post is slightly lengthy, I'm going to split it into two parts to make things simple. What she claims as fact and what she expresses as her opinion. I'm only interested in addressing what she claims as facts. Her opinions are her opinions, and she is free to trade on them. No, back. Not yet. In this video, I will address the first four claims that she convincingly states as facts. A year ago today, a judge set new precedents for the state of Utah when he signed a decree of annulment for fraud and misrepresentation in my relationship of over 7 years. That's me. Before that ruling, the longest annulment for fraud was about 1 year. An annulment means that in the eyes of the law, your marriage never existed. You may have been in a relationship, but it wasn't a marriage. It's extremely difficult to get a marriage annulled for fraud in Utah. Most petitions for such end in divorce. The fraud must be extreme and directly related to the marriage. So in this post, Julia asserts the following claims. Claim number 1. The judge of our marriage dissolution set a precedence in the Utah courts in signing a decree of annulment for fraud and misrepresentation in her over 7-year-long relationship. Claim number 2. Before Judge Stone's ruling, the longest marriage annulment for fraud lasted about 1 year. Claim number 3. She defines an annulment as being in a relationship, but the law does not recognize a marriage. And claim number 4. It's extremely difficult to get a marriage annulled for fraud in Utah. The fraud must be extreme and directly related to the marriage. Whew, okay. So, let's start by addressing claim number 4. It's extremely difficult to get a marriage annulled for fraud in Utah. The fraud must be extreme and directly related to the marriage.
Bang! Oh, first shot right out of the box!
Well done, Julia. That claim is true. But I see where you're going with this, so let's stick a pin in that for a moment. Moving on to claim number 3. She defines an annulment as being in a relationship, but the law does not recognize there was ever a marriage.
Oh, bing! Again, you are sharp as a tack!
We are 2 for 2. Why am I even making this video? And since divorce decrees are public record in the state of Utah, I'm not violating any confidentiality agreements by disclosing his name or mine. I just want to lock in the facts. So let's move on to claim number 2. Before that ruling, the longest marriage annulment for fraud lasted about 1 year. Oh, Julia, we were doing so well. According to the Utah State Code 81-4-302, length of marriage is not a legal ground for the annulment under Utah statute. We could have been married for 55 years and still applied to the courts for an annulment. You know, ironically, the person who alerted me to Julia's tragic anniversary post was a person who had just received an annulment from her husband of 3 years for fraud and misrepresentation. But I see where you're going here, Julia. Being awarded an annulment for fraud and misrepresentation after 7 long years of marriage, when it's almost impossible to get one even after 1 year of marriage, really sets the victimhood scene for you. Which, crossing fingers, brings us to claim number 1. Julia asserts that the ruling of her annulment for fraud and misrepresentation against me set a precedence in the Utah courts. I'm a little hung up on the whole fraud and misrepresentation thing. Now, I do not presume to speak for Julia, but in the law, setting a precedent means establishing a legal principle or rule through a court decision that serves as a guide for future similar cases. So this is a pretty big deal for you, Julia. You must feel completely exonerated. Except your claim number 1, Julia, is categorically false. Judge Stone did not set a precedent in delivering to you a ruling of fraud and misrepresentation in our annulment. We didn't even appear in his court. He merely signed off on an agreement between you and I. Now, for the folks at home, here is the actual decree of annulment signed off by Judge Stone as presented to him on the 22nd of February, 2023. Point 1. Annulment. The parties are awarded a decree of annulment dissolving any bonds of matrimony as though no marriage had existed, with the same to become final immediately upon signing an entry. And for added accuracy, this is the findings of fact and conclusions of law that accompanies the decree. Point 2. Marriage. The parties were wed on January 8th, 2016, and they separated on December 31st, 2021. Point 3. Annulment. The parties stipulate to a decree of annulment which should dissolve any bonds of matrimony as though no marriage had existed. A very important fact that you left out of your anniversary post, Julia, that 104 engagers liked, hearted, and cared for. 84 commenters left wonderful supportive messages for you, and 4 folks shared it on, was that both parties, you and I, were both awarded an annulment because we both stipulated to it. Your additional claims about setting a precedent in the courts of Utah for being awarded an annulment for fraud and misrepresentation in your marriage to me are just pure lies. To you, the viewer, if you think I may have manipulated these documents in some way to hide Julia's claims, this is the case number, and you are welcome to apply to the courts to get your own copies. It's public record. Julia was not awarded a landmark annulment for fraud and misrepresentation in her 7-year-long marriage to me. I wanted the annulment, Julia wanted the annulment, and the judge says, "You get the annulment," and he signed off. Here's an interesting side note. Not one of the 104 engagers, or the 84 commenters, or the 4 people who shared the post on, have ever come to me to say, "Hey, what's your side of the story?" Julia's convincing misrepresentation of the truth has received an overwhelming amount of support for a tragic-filled story that would be abhorrent for any woman to have to endure from a man who is the face of evil, if it were actually true. To you, the viewer, you might be sensing a heavy level of sarcasm on my part. And you might be thinking, what's the big deal? So she fibbed a little about your divorce. Get over it. Well, let me tell you why it's a big deal. Julia has since remarried, and she has shown no signs of letting me go. To the contrary, as witnesses have shared with me in their written statements, from screenshots of text messages she has sent around the globe, notes she has written, and multiple calls she has made around the world, Julia Blue, with her misfit band of converts, over the past 3 years, has made it her directive to protect the human race from Paul Cactus Jack Lamar, the face of evil. I am exasperated by the last 3 years. Julia and her misfit band of converts have been in contact with my children, my family, my friends, my ex-wives, my ex-girlfriends, my previous employers, my current employers, my fans, my music industry contacts, my film crew, cast members, film contacts, producers, neighbors, church members, my wife's family, business associates' families, previous romantic interests' families, past employees, and anyone who will give them a gossip-loving ear. And they have claimed that I am either one or all of the following: serial killer, murderer, rapist, pedophile, con artist, fraudster, scam artist, thief, cultist, polygamist, stalker, child sex groomer, narcissist, psychopath, sociopath, schizophrenic, and just recently, forger. Recently, we have received multiple screenshots from text conversations between Julia and Yvonne Rankin, one of Julia's converts. Yvonne happens to be Elena Lamar's sister, and Elena Lamar happens to be my wife. This is Elena Lamar, my wife.
Hello.
Now, Yvonne had never met Julia nor ever spoken to her until after you and I started dating. Now, Julia had expressly asked her new best buddy not to share any of their conversations with anyone, especially me. But, you know, as the saying goes, there's no honor among God's chosen. This is a particular text that we feel is important to share. To the thousands of you who have unfriended me, blocked me, taken sides without hearing both sides, and cut off all contact with me in every way, I wish you a most wonderful life, and that you find all that you are looking for. But before you go, Julia grossly misrepresented the truth to you in her Facebook post of February 22nd, 2024. I was not innocent in my marriage to Julia. I made my poor choices and bad mistakes.
And bad mistakes, I've made a few.
But I am happy and very willing to take responsibility for them. But from the utter destruction of my life and now even our life, from Julia's gross and intentional misrepresentation of the truth, I have nothing left to lose. The damage is irreparable. To those who are a part of her salacious campaign, we hope you enjoy this video. There are many more to come. A common promise that you have proclaimed throughout all of this is that you have copious amounts of proof of my salacious and heinous deeds. Well, the police, the courts, rational human beings, and even Interpol are ready and willing to receive your evidence. I am now telling my side of the story, and I have video and texts and witness statements and police reports and, actual evidence. To you, the viewer, it does not matter what you think of me, nor what you decide of me, and it is not my intention to demonize anyone. Julia has already got me pegged as the poster boy of all things evil. But just as Julia gets to share her side of the story, and just as Julia has gone public, well, I'm going to play by those rules, and I'm going to go public and share my side of the story. And you get to decide whether or not I'm the world's worst husband.